So it is the 19th of June, the time at 11 in UK and 12 here in Denmark, where I am sitting. Welcome to this Danish and Coffee LinkedIn Live 11 episode. It is, Kevin, now that we are up to an extended version today. I have 45 minutes to have a great session with great people joining us today. We have a short introduction. You will get a little bit more who you are. Dan Thompson from Acquired, Martin O'Donnell from DEBTstream, Estella from DEBTRACK. And this is a little warm-up session for a big event that we will be hosting in September in London, where we will be going to talk about AI and how it actually works in real life. So this is a little startup session, the next 45 minutes. We have 235 people registered for this session that either watch now or, as always, we will send it out to you afterwards to see the session there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you and welcome to our guest. And Kevin, as you know, we have done an event before, physical, where we did panel debates, and I thought we have so many great people today. We want to talk about optimization, we want to talk about AI, we want to talk about all the small pockets where you can get wins to make better customer experience, better conversion rate, better connection rate, and better outcomes. So that is the theme for today. And Kevin, maybe you should take over to be the moderator of this next 45-minute session. And I will do in the end of the show today a little advertisement for you who are thinking, what is that event in September? And I need to go there. There will be a possibility for that later on. So with that said, welcome to the show. Over to you, Kevin.
I was wondering whether I get a word in edgewise at some point. Thank you for doing that. So yes, this is an unusually large audience for us, and therefore Martin has agreed just to be a guest today, so you will only get his fair share of airtime on that. And the idea today is really to talk about collaboration in amongst all of the innovation. So without further ado, and I think it's only fair if we go ladies first, Estella to introduce herself, DEBTRACK, and some of the things that are very front of mind in their role within this ecosystem. We're very pro talking about some of the clients that we work with, and I know Martin, I'm sure, will talk about some of the awards he's up for next week. I think Dan is as well. So there are, aspects here, hopefully, where we can talk about real life use cases. And Martin, the March event was AI, real life. That's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about scale. We want to talk about real customers. And I'll keep my mouth shut about theory, so we can talk about things in practical sense today. So Estella, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off.
Yeah, so I'm Estella, Head of Client Services for DEBTRACK. I've been at DEBTRACK for about 11 years, but I have worked in the collections industry for about 20 years. So I've definitely been around a while, seeing all the different technologies. Really, DEBTRACK sits in the middle. So we're the collection system, the system of record. Really, every system will, we sit in the middle, and each surrounding thing, whether it's a payment gateway, a digital platform, an AI model, a dialer, everything comes, out from DEBTRACK and back in. So we really sit in the middle, managing all of the data that comes in and out, and aid in all the different improvements our clients want to make with all these amazing providers, really.
Excellent. And in terms of today, particularly talking about these ecosystems and you sort of being part of the glue within that, where do you see some of the, the number one challenges? What do you want to get? What message do you want to get out today in terms of that whole theme?
So we I know this has always been the case, but most of what we do is ingest and take data in and out of services. And the challenge that we have, or all providers have, is this, say Acquired gets some additional fields, we've got to ingest it and do something with those fields. If DEBTstream needs something, we need to pass it on to them. If Mega AI needs some data to run an AI model. So really the challenge for us, which has always been the case, but it's just becoming more and more, is ingesting and giving data in a structured format.
So you're the vital link between all of this on the systems integration.
Yeah.
So Dan, you're up next. You've got a chance before Martin, or the two Martins, get involved in this debate. And I know you're a bit of a pioneer here. Your ward, I think, is best use of open banking next week. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Acquired, and what you want to get out of today.
Thanks, Kevin, and look, appreciate the invite today, and thanks to everyone here for joining us. So my name's Dan Thompson. I'm one of the partner managers here at Acquired. We're a payment service provider in the UK, been around since 2015, very specialised in recurring payments and mainly within financial services. Within financial services, we process payments currently for about 150 consumer lenders and around 50 debt collection agencies. We're obsessed about maximising collections for these businesses, and a lot of that is around of course we've got many tools to do that, but really it's around, we talk a lot about convert, retain and recover here at Acquired. So convert, it's just winning more customers, it's maximising that acceptance from that very first transaction. Retaining, it's trying to do everything you can to keep customers paying, keep them in that cycle. And recover, so of course there will be some payments that can't be collected. So there's a range of tools that our clients' disposal where they can help maximise those recovery rates as well. But great to be here, and look forward to the rest of the discussion today.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit later on, so make sure you don't let me forget around optimization and uplift more generally in a number of different areas before I give the floor to Martin O'Donnell. I've known Martin for a while now and keep bumping into him when he's not winning awards at the moment. So I was at Credit Connect a couple of weeks ago where I had to take quite a few photographs of several of you on it. So Martin, without further ado, visually you may not be moving as fast as your voice, so just everybody take that in account.
Yeah, fun Fridays, everyone. So forget the visual, like Kevin said, but thanks, Kevin, as well. But hopefully the audio is coming across okay.
It is.
So myself, Martin O'Donnell, I'm the CPO, one of the co-founders at DEBTstream. For those that don't know, DEBTstream's a digital collections self-service platform. It's a white label platform, but we've been working with everyone on this call, on this session for quite a while now. So deeply integrated together as part of the ecosystem, from being able to trigger from DEBTRACK outbound to then execute through DEBTRACK workflow to execute for our self-service, through to then take a payment with Acquired. So I'm not going to talk too much just about DEBTstream. This is about this session, how everything's working end to end and together as an ecosystem. But yeah, that's it from me.
That's a great segue there.
I'm going to stop, and my video will catch up in about 10 seconds.
And if you're online, so I'm watching for the chat at the moment, it's about 10-second delay from there. So just to confuse everybody. But Martin, I'm going to give you 1 minute at the moment, just because everybody I think knows you, and to talk about what you found, particularly with this particular group, and how Omega's wired itself into this ecosystem.
First of all, thank you for being here. Great partners. This is I'm the new kid on the block, you can say. So Mega AI, I'm the co-founder. You know me. What I think is amazing with this group, I actually had a talk with you, Kevin, this morning where we talked about other things and saying what I like is to see the big DCAs, the lending companies. Like if you are professional service, have that service around collection internally or externally. What I like is, and what I see is that these companies are taking, it's not only about bumps on seat anymore, it's about choosing the best tech stack, not like this is one size fit them all or this can solve everything. You take the best of the best. That's what I like with the conversation today. Where are those pockets, where are those wins? And because we work together as a group, we have multiple clients together. That makes a big difference for the client. They will convert more, they will succeed more, they will have better customer experience. So
I'm going to stop you there while you got your lines right there, Martin. So that's my segue for our guests here now. That whole concept of best in class versus buying a monolithic platform that's good at most things, but optimization is not necessary. How do you gain the extra, time, money, efficiency, innovation, I think is the key to the discussion today. So I'm going to bring Martin O'Donnell back in at this point in time. and look at that, Martin, over recent years, you not only have looked at some of the core bits of your platform, but how you enhance different journeys as people have looked at different multimedia methods, different engagement methods. And you talked about this with the emergence of portals. So let's start with the portal dialogue and how you've seen that evolve over recent years. Are we still with you, Martin?
Sorry, my mic completely cut out. Great, this is all good fun time. So just repeat, just 5 seconds. Just give me a flavour, Kevin. Apologies about that. That's why I've taken my headphones off.
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking at coming to you first in terms of the whole area around picking best in class, getting them to integrate together, because we can talk to Estella in a minute about how you glue it together. But you've come into play and worked with a number of partnerships with Qualco, Webio before they became Ariza, and a number of different providers where you've got involved with Step Change and others. As a service provider of choice around your area of speciality, and particularly around the concept of self-serve as that's emerged. So if we could start that journey there, particularly on the digital side, what you've seen emerge, and then after that, how that has developed, let's say over the last 18 months or so.
So I guess, to be honest, the biggest thing of what's emerging and continues to emerge is ecosystem approach. And it's not just about how technology fits together necessarily. That's a big part of it. There's the technical layer of how tech fits together, but then it's also the culture of the partners that you work with in the ecosystem. Right, that's a big factor, because if you're all aligned, you're trying to go for the same end goal of outcomes for a customer or whatever it be, that's going to make that integration process, Kevin, far simpler, right? To collaborate and work through it together. So culture, I think, is actually a big important piece. And I would say if I was to move into focusing the last 18 months, I guess there's 2 levels to it. Is actually looking at this group and this team here as well. I think we've built up great collaboration, a good joint partnership and culture together of how we go in and solve problems. And that has been a really big piece in the last 18 months. And then from the actual general landscape, if I put my self-service digital collections hat on as well, what has continued to evolve is personalization. The ability for personalization within journeys has massively shifted, and AI is going to be a fundamental piece to push that further.
I think we lost you there vocally. I'll come back to you in a minute, Martin, but I'm going to develop that question with Dan. So as we talk about today, some of these journeys have started off from relatively straightforward ones into more complex affordability, time to pay arrangements, where open banking and other things have become a key factor. So where you're coming into it as a payment service provider, working alongside portals, voice bots and the like, what do you see as the challenges, and what are the enablers for you in coming into that ecosystem as a partner, and to be able to join your services up and give you the opportunity, look at optimizing and enhancing the level of payments where that's appropriate?
Yeah, great question there, Kevin. So first, acquired partnerships is central to what we do. So obviously, across this, you guys here today, you're a few of our really valued partners that we work with, a lot of these debt platforms, lending platforms, and we all want the same thing, and it's to help improve collections for all of these businesses and give their customers a better experience. So for us, it's feeding these systems with that real-time payment data, that reliable payment data that can be used in a lot of cool ways. So given the intelligence to know if a payment declines, right, when is that optimal time to retry? The right day, the right time even to get the best success. And it's just really for ourselves, it's having that orchestration layer. So there's, of course, lots of different payment tools and payment methods that we can provide, but you're going to get different success rates for different routes, because what you cannot do in collections whether it's for debt collection agencies or lenders, for example, you cannot just tar every customer with the same brush. Every customer has their own very different personal challenges, their very different circumstances. So you must try and build workflows if you can that can customize a journey per individual, whether that is, hey, I know that this customer loves to pay with their Apple Pay or Google Pay wallet, for example, or maybe they like paying with open banking. So it's having that intelligence, and a lot of that really feeds into where these guys, these value partners do really well. It's that data, it's that customer data, using that intelligence to be closer to the customers, and then we can do our cool bit, feeding that real-time payment data to help together in this ecosystem build some automated workflows that give better customer outcomes.
Yeah, so we come back to operationalizing compliance and where that can have a positive spin as well as potentially the usual, success prevention lens. But we're going to be in a positive mode today because we've got Martin on the call. Estella, talking about orchestration levels, layers, that sounds like it's one of your spaces. So from an enablement point of view, when you're working with partners like Martin and Dan and Mega, for example, how do you facilitate that in terms of the ability to bring partners to evolving horizons?
Yeah, so we have to obviously consume all the data into our structured database, but also what's happened and evolved over the last, say, 18 months, and it's been evolving for years, but is workflows. So originally we used to have like traditional based workflows, which is like day 10, you do one action, day 20, you do another action. And obviously they're really useful for many things. But now we've evolved to like more event-based workflows. So we consume data from Acquired or DEBTstream, and depending on that, you can trigger a workflow. And then there's another enhancement that's happened recently, is now we're being asked to have AI-driven workflows, which means looking at the next best action based on what Dan and yourself were saying about consumers and customers. How will they best react to this? So based on the data you have, what's best to do next for that customer? And that's just the way of workflows are evolving. They've evolved from traditional event-based, which you can still do, but now you've also got an additional level of AI next best action workflows based on the data that we're consuming from Acquired or DEBTstream or whichever partner.
Okay. I mean, the next bit I'd like to covers a bit of the two Martins, really. Martin Nilsson first. What we're seeing now is we've discussed a number of use cases around ID&V, how successful those been, how you bring human in the loop. The natural progression from that is you've identified somebody, you've gone through a process that may only take 5 minutes, but you've got their information, they're comfortable with you on the phone, and you need to move into that affordability assessment, time to pay arrangement potentially. Or the flip side is they've been through a self-serve portal like Martin's, you recognize you can't take their word for something and you need to do a bit of validation, and therefore two partners need to collaborate together to find a slick journey for certain customer cohorts. So if I start with you, Martin Nilsson, what's your view on that journey? It's very topical, so we're talking about it next week on affordability. What are your thoughts?
I just want to step one little step back, because picking up what Dan said, and I think that's actually says a lot. Different customer journeys for different customers based on data, based on what you know, what's the best outcome for this client. And what you said, Estella, one size don't fit them all. There was in the old days Dunning letter, there's Dunning letter, 8-day Dunning letter, SMS, the same flows. And I think that is the opportunities we have now to understand the client better, to give them a better customer experience and how they want to be served. And it's just very logical for me, coming from an outbound industry, been serving that for 12, 13 years, doing thousands of outbound calls every day, where in sales situation, you would use that, you would understand where the client is and you would go different direction. And I think it has been very like in a box before. Now you begin that. And you're right, Kevin, some clients where they want to talk with us, maybe we figure out under the call that because we have a collaboration, all of us with vulnerable registration service, that the client is vulnerable. Oh, what does that mean? maybe before in the old days that you would just have continued one route because that doesn't matter, it's this route. But here in this example, maybe that's better for me to the AI agent to say, let me transfer you into DEBTstream. The good thing with DEBTstream and Mega is the client don't need to do an identification 2 times because they did that with the AI agent. But the best solution for the end client based on signals or data points was to transfer them into a vulnerability self-service flow, or what that says when you do a checkout. Is it then good for this client to pay by this method or this method based on maybe age, demography, where you are? So I think those journeys will be tailored based on what's the best direction for the client. And you're right, now you have income and expenditure check. That can happen over in DEBTstream. It can also happen in Mega, and it can happen in a combination of both, whatever the client will prefer to do based on data and knowledge. And I think then, not to talk too much, but I think I was so intrigued when you said to me a couple of days ago, because we took Apple Pay, Google Pay in the checkout of a flow, it raised the payments with, I don't know, 4% or XYZ. But that's a really small pocket for me. Before, in the old days, you wouldn't have that. And I still see it with a lot of DCAs. There is one SMS, one thing, one choice, but one size don't fit them all. I don't know if it answered you, Kevin, or I went in all directions, but I think that was the core of...
You meandered around a bit there, so I'm gonna bring Martin O'Donnell in to get us back on focus there from this collaboration, particularly around where you've got portals with engagement with the clients, but where you hand off to other journeys here, and then I'll move on to Estella afterwards around system of record, around things like tell us once. Doesn't just have to be about vulnerability, it can be about affordability as well, depending on how that assessment was made and how it's shared going forward.
But it is the key, Kevin, the key is that handover between the system based on the journeys, based on the knowledge. What is the best route for that customer to go down on?
Martin, here we go again. See if we can...
No, thanks, Kevin. So look, personalization, by the way, I can just hear being mentioned by everyone as well. So it really is on that side. But if we're talking handover of systems and how they work together, so starting right from DEBTRACK, for instance, like Estella mentioned, the next best action on the workflow decides to do an outbound AI voice call to a customer. They go through authentication through the AI voice call through Mega, but through that conversation with the customer, they realize actually it's best to put them onto another channel. They've already been authenticated. So Mega generates through a DEBTstream API, for instance, a tokenized link to onboard them to the digital journey. Great, because they've already been authenticated, they've already got an online account, they go straight in and start a session on DEBTstream right when they click that. So you're removing friction out, they're not repeating what they've already done, but we've also got some of the context, right? Because they're looking to go through affordability. So it could be that Mega outputs the outcome that handed off for an affordability assessment to DEBTRACK. We then call DEBTRACK as soon as they land on that journey and say, great, the status is focus on affordability. So the journey will personalize on our side, take them through the process, structure a payment plan, but actually based on some of the data again, so we talk about next action personalization, we decide there might be certain elements through the acquired checkout that we're going to display. We're not going to display open banking payments, but we want to display Apple Pay and traditional card as the right method, right? Based on historic engagement for the customer. And that's all possible for on the acquired side. It all then goes in a loop and outcome and executes and passes back to DEBTRACK through real-time APIs of that plan that's been made and all that outcome and engagement data along the way. So to like Estella said, you can then drive that next best action engine again, leveraging the AI engine that DEBTRACK have.
Yeah.
Does that help, Kevin, just give a bit of the context?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely does. And I think for Estella, particularly here with regard to the demands on system of record, the Financial Conduct Authority has made it very clear this year that evidence is key. We're coming up to the next round of board reports for many firms, and we've had a number of people on LinkedIn Live that will be involved in those reports. So what you're seeing as challenges, Estella, in bringing all this information together, whether it may be part of the client journey from Mega, from Dan, from DEBTstream, together, building the whole picture, which may include some direct engagement from the customer themselves. What are the challenges, and where do you see this going, and where does AI fit into it with all this data?
So the challenge is obviously making sure that we store the data, but also obviously in a structured way, and also auditing. So you have to consider, like, you know, with these things, as the data changes, we also have to have you know, the backup of the audit tables in order to be able to look at how that record has gone through. So it's a challenge, but it is very much one that we're used to, in the fact that we have had to consume data in a structured way for a long time. We've just got more sources now. So, for example, with the vulnerable registration service, they've got a really good thing where the consumer or the customer actually tells you the outcome that they want from that, which I think is really good, because you know, just because you've got a certain vulnerability doesn't mean you want to be treated in a certain way. We can actually consume that outcome, you know, because we've got that, and then that means that we can trigger the workflows, or the DEBTstream can have a digital journey based on that. So the challenge is always around data and storing it in a structured way. But I think, you know, it's something that we are used to. It's just more data and more triggers and more integrations.
Martin, you got your finger up. That's the next best thing to a hand. You got the floor.
It is. No, I just want to deep in, Estella, when we talk of data, because data is, I think, the foundation. When we also have our event and going to talk insight to action, that's where the biggest gap is. How do you see that? Has that improved, or have we all seen it? Are companies out there, have you seen an improvement of how they are getting ready to that? Because it starts there with data structure and data washing, data cleaning, to do all the things we are talking about today. How do you see that journey go? Do you see clients and customers going more and more into take more serious work on it on another level than earlier?
Yeah, I think that's been happening for many years with the change in, you know, the way that the industry has gone, that people are really switched on to how their data is, and they've been doing data cleansing and validation. But yeah, I think that the clients that I'm seeing are definitely, you know, seeing that as important, and they are, you know, doing those exercises and to make sure that data is key, really.
So a quick question for everybody here, and I'll go around the floor. So we got duty board reporting in July. AI governance is a much bigger piece of this, as is sort of operational resilience, and being given to the directors useful information. So be interested to know what strategic MI reporting you've seen a change in over the last year or so, where people are having to provide these reports. They're being requested by the FCA to say, look, are you continuously improving? Have you got your finger on the pulse on your higher risk cohorts, notably vulnerable? So for start briefly with you, Estella, in terms of as the system of record, probably the main repository before we get into QA frameworks, what are you seeing? And then I'll go to Martin and Dan.
Yeah, there is more report. I mean, there is a lot of reporting in the collections anyway, because of, you know, targets and looking at best strategies. But yeah, the reporting is, you know, the auditing and being able to report on a more like granular level is definitely growing. And, you know, the clients are taking it very seriously, and to make sure they can report on all these things. So again, that would be making sure your data is, you know, structured in a way that you can report on it. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're seeing more of.
So Martin, in your area where you're dealing with a lot of client engagement, consumer engagement, are you seeing any real exam questions from your clients in terms of what they want to see coming out of your platform into either dynamic or structured data, you know, in a way that tells them really what is going on in the business, that outcome focus that said we're getting poor outcomes here or good ones here?
Yeah.
So there's So there, I guess there's two layers from our side, right? You talked about outcome data, and there's, like Estella said, event engagement data as well. So what the good thing maybe for DEBTstream as well, you know, we've got great system partners and providers like DEBTRACK as well, who actually from a system level have that ownership of the outcome of executing reporting. But the ownership from our side is making sure that data is accessible to get it back to the right system, whether it is an analytics platform, the core CRM, or whatever it be the reporting's done from as well. That's one thing I just want to highlight as part of that. So for us, we'd push everything back to DEBTRACK, for example. But we have a lot around outcome data generally, because the way our platform works, you've made a payment, executes required, for instance, or an affordability assessment. That outcome we are posting back wherever possible in the real time to the core system. Where it's started to increase, though, because we create a lot of event and engagement data, is more ask for that to come back, so they have that holistic view of not just the end outcome, but it's that journey along the way, right? So even from the communication triggered by DEBTRACK, they go on to DEBTstream, they start an income and expenditure or finish one, but don't set up a plan. It's being able to actually give the engagement data along that journey as well, because then you've got that holistic view of a customer interaction and then the ultimate outcome, to your point, Kevin.
I'll bring Dan in a minute, but I'm going to let Martin have a speak. So Martin, in one of the areas we've been looking at particularly has been that handoff to an agent. What do you see is going to become increasingly important when we look at customer journey, that you arm the next person in the loop, and they may be called the next best action, but the human's brought into that. How do we give enough information from the previous interactions to that agent so they continue the journey potentially with the right level of empathy, etc.? Where do you see that heading now, where we've introduced voice bots, but they are going to have to work very closely with human in the loop?
Yeah, both that and that what Martin actually said also, when maybe they start one place and then they didn't finish it off. So where is that gap? We can also see we begin to do income and expenditure check now, where maybe that information, we have some collaboration with IE Hub and other providers where we have some information coming in. Some of that information then an AI agent needs to take over. But again, then some of that information will probably lead to, okay, the assessment of what you can afford to pay now need to be assessed by a human. So that's of course one flow where you can say where do you need to start and go from, and when do you need to transfer? We talk a lot about vulnerability, of course, also in that way. When a client is vulnerable, what's the right place to do? Also, probably to transfer them down to a human. So you're right, Kim. We started with an IDNV process. Now the conversation is going further and further and further. Some of the things that I think you talked, and you have talked, Ken, one thing is the handover to a human. Another thing is maybe a handover from a human to an AI assistant, or for a human into DEBTstream or to something else, where again an income and expenditure check that can be along. Maybe it's a review every third month. Maybe I'm sitting as a human and have that conversation with the client, but then I could send this over to an AI assistant. So it can go both ways. I think also that transfer between, it's actually about what kind of competence is important in that situation that we are standing in now. What does the client want, but what is also the most optimal thing out of an operation perspective?
So, and I guess, sorry, just to add on to the AI voice element, I guess the handover to an agent, the context as part of that handover, the previous conversation, linking into what you were saying, Kevin, on outcomes, like the reasoning why a voice agent has gone down a certain path and why it's handed over to a human agent, and then the context behind that is incredibly important as well, right? Especially as it becomes more and more embedded.
Yeah, and just to follow up on it a little bit, and you said also again in information, let's say we have a conversation, you want to transfer that information, half of an IDNV or half of an income and expenditure, you want to transfer that into a human operator. One thing is that the agent is telling, hey, Estella, is mega, I have client number 572, the client is going through this process, have shown vulnerable signals, etc. That information, where we are, how the customer is feeling, where they are in the flow, also need to be transferred directly into an API, what we would do into DEBTRACK, so the live agent can sit there and have that information available. So those things talking instantly together make a smooth journey.
I've got 2 minutes before we play the video, so I'm going to bring Dan back in around some of his MI dashboard requests he gets, both as a firm but also into the ecosystem. And then I'm going to ask Estella to talk about data sharing and how you data share in a structured way, so you as the system of record actually can capture it and use it and maybe share that with other third parties.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Yeah, I just wanted to build a bit more on this, what Martin O'Donnell was saying about how many times that customer journey, it might change. It might change unexpectedly to try and achieve a positive outcome. And think about last year, so we did a consumer lending report. So we surveyed 500 consumer lenders, and on that report is really interesting finding of the scenario when a loan repayment declines. And what we found was 64% of near prime customers and 61% of subprime customers, when it declined, it wasn't a case of, hey, there's no funds available. It was actually, we do have funds available on a different card. So that was really interesting, because then that immediately changes the journey of that customer. It's using that data to say, well, no, we don't have to necessarily wait until funds become available. It's, we need to build a workflow that changes this customer journey, and it's potentially trying a different card, or maybe trying a different payment method like open banking to try and get a successful outcome for the customer.
And I guess the great thing is, Dan, about your data, though, from that point, is like you're saying, it's driving a different journey, but you've also got the data available for acquired of, I declined on the first one because of insufficient funds, which actually can be used for that context, like Kevin's point, of those ultimate outcomes, the customer situation, right? So even to the levels of reasons for why declines are happening, and I guess the reasons for that decision of a different method, it's these data points. You've got quite a few different data points that can be really useful to pull back from the acquired API on that as well.
So Estella, you got 1 minute before we play the advert for our next event, and we rejoin the debate again. Structured data.
Yeah, so an example of that could be, and me and Dan were talking about this the other day, actually, about like customer preferences. So what initially could happen is an agent could be speaking to a customer, and they say, oh, well, if your payment declines or there's an issue with your card, how do you want to be contacted? They say, oh, I want to be contacted by email, SMS, voice agent, like whichever method. You can log that in the system at the time. You then take the payment, it doesn't go through, the message comes back from acquired, we consume that in a structured way, but we've also got the dual data if we've got the customer preference. So we know at that point they've done the second attempt, it didn't go through. We know that they prefer to be contacted like this, and you can trigger a journey for that customer based on the data from acquired, but also the data that you've got, preference. You can then contact the customer how they want to be contacted and hopefully drive the best outcome.
Thanks for that. Are we ready, Martin? And do we give credit to Nathan for this one?
Oh, of course, always. The only one, Nathan J. Hilton, have created a little one. So before we kick that off in 1 second, more or less, I just want to say that, guys, we are having a huge event, this discussion. I love it because we are going into the pocket, to the deepest, to give advice and thoughts. We have a live event for the second time, Insight to Action, 24th of September, Crown Plaza, Stratford upon Avon. A free event, high-level event where it's not just sitting and listening, it's participating in an active level. So if you sit with your iPhone right now, get it ready. You will have time in 30 seconds to scan a little code, and then you can join the event on 24th September. Let's hit it off with a little video and talk about the event a little bit that we're going to host together. Boom, for a short intro, always hard hitter from Nathan. And again, 24th of September. If you didn't have time to scan it, we will send it out afterwards to everybody so you can join our live event. So that was a little heads up for that. That's a full day. And
I think Dan was the only one that wasn't involved last time round. And I think Estella, Martin and I all chaired panel sessions on it. So I'm just going to go to the couple of experienced panel leaders first of all. Estella kicked us off last time. What are you looking forward to next time, and what do you think the hot topics are? Before I give Martin a chance, because I think he's already had a preview of what the agenda could look like.
So last time it was very much taking AI at the beginning because we wanted to give everyone like a bit of an introduction to it. This time it's about like those ideas that we had, how do you bring them into action? So really looking forward to that. And hopefully I'm going to have some AI students as well on a panel, which I'm really excited about to see what they're learning about, because, you know, obviously they're coming into the industry from the beginning. So I'm really excited about that. And hopefully this time we have water for the whole day.
Yeah, that's right. That was a problem last time.
Yeah, but by water it meant you couldn't have a shower, so you had a lot of people that were getting a bit whiffy by the end of the day on it. But it's benefited in the long run because we got the venue again, and hopefully, Martin, I think we're looking for a bigger audience this time. We were at a full house, but in a smaller room, I think.
Martin O'Donnell.
Martin O'Donnell.
Yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, no, so we're looking to, like you said, build for a bigger audience though as well. And like Estella said, we're looking to diversify some of the panel a bit, because if you're having people that have studied in regards to some of the AI technology from people from different industries, it's completely different contexts. And like Estella said about implementing AI itself, hearing from people that are looking at this from a completely different angle could really inspire and trigger you to think, actually, in the collections and credit management industry, this is how I could leverage it. Actually, I haven't thought of it from that concept and that angle. And actually, yes, we do technically have that same problem. And I just now need to apply that to the collections and recoveries industry. So it's going to be really, really good event. Open discussion, Martin, like you said as well. And you're going to hear the word that everyone loves, has probably heard for the last 3 years, of AI said several thousand times throughout the day. So
I think it was useful last time around, Martin, that the agenda started off pretty structured, but then in the afternoon we got to the point where all the audience were participating, which was fantastic.
Exactly.
And you managed, without it becoming chaotic, everybody, including me, being a bit of a disruptor at the front, but we got really, really, really good participation, and I think that's our aim again this time, I think.
Yeah, and Kevin, again, I think, and for the group here, what's nice with these things is because you drown a little bit, Martin, you said it 9,000 times, maybe a day you hear that word. So it become a lot, and it becomes sometimes a lot of fluffy and a lot of concrete things, and all people, including myself, that are selling these things, like we have an agenda, but to hear it from other people in different industries, that you are saying what is working, what is not working, what's stalled out there, and what I really like with what you said is different industries, and now also students. That's the new generation coming up, so they know a lot. That inspiration will take maybe things home that you can be more concrete at, saying it works here, other people had these problems, I face the same problems. So I think that's the good takeout, that is like what's really working out there.
I agree, and the big thing for what we're trying to do is talk practically about it. It's about outcomes, like Kevin was saying earlier. It's about driving outcomes and evidence it along the way, of course, but it'd be the same as like the acquired side, right? So we're talking about personalization earlier. This is the way acquired can work, for instance, and leverage AI over the top in a digital engine or DEBTRACK or whatever it be, to really personalize and test and learn what are the right methods, for instance, to display for a customer with the right messaging, for instance, to get the right outcome in the end, as well as fraud detection and all these things along the payment stack. But we really will focus on it from the practical and outcome-based elements, like Estella said, of how to implement it. But hopefully a bit of that extra spice with people coming at it from a different industry with a different perspective.
So Dan, just as we get towards the end now, particularly you deal with a lot of transactional data, and I'm sure you use AI in that. What do you think you guys can bring to the party there that brings one of those new lenses, as Martin O'Donnell's just been talking about?
Yeah, so Kevin, I mean, in our team, something that we're working on a bit is to optimize some of these recovery tools. So utilizing AI, machine learning to refine the optimum recovery times. So when you will retry and try and take a payment. So it's, you know, to pretty okay level at the moment, but we know it can be better. We know there can be even more intelligence, and utilizing AI machine learning will be great. And I think generally in the world of AI, like, you know, a lot of businesses are still in this exploratory phase. They're still yet to get to that optimization phase with AI. And like, I listened to this podcast the other day about collections and AI, and it's quite a good analogy came out of it. And it's like AI models that a business might have embedded, they might not have built those workflows yet that can actually drive those better outcomes. And it's pretty much like having Google Maps, but still getting to your destination by memory. It's the same kind of thing. So hopefully a lot of people who come on the 24th of September, one thing they can just take away from it will be how to try and utilize these great tools better. And look, we're all learning together, right? This is like a relatively new phase for all of us. We're all in it together, but hopefully some, you know, good takeaways and tips can be taken from that event in September.
Great thing just to add on the acquired side. So I was just going to say, Matt Wetton, the CTO from Acquired, who's hugely deep on AI, if you follow him on LinkedIn, is going to be joining on one of the panels as well. So I think Dan's trying not to give away too much as well, but the CTO at Acquired is massively deep on this topic as well.
So some sneaky releases coming out very soon. We've got an affordability event next week, Martin, I think. I've got to speak at a credit union event now, and then I'm hopefully seeing a few of you at the bar next week at the Credit Week in the Celtic Manor. So there's quite a lot going on at the moment. Martin, any final words for Martin Nielsen?
Yeah, just want to say thank you for a good discussion. Looking forward to the next time again. And Kevin, just here in the end, before we say goodbye and let people go, we have another LinkedIn live session coming up next Friday. Not to say too much about it, but it's something about new regulations and it's something about, Kevin.
Well, I think you can't mention, but if you're saying AI 900 times, we're going to say buy now, pay later, probably 1,000 times.
Boom, that's next Friday, where we will be live back on LinkedIn again. For everybody participating today, thank you a lot. Great discussion as always. We will send it out to everybody the episode afterwards. We will also send where you can register your interest for our event on the 24th. Have a happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend from Copenhagen, London, wherever you are. See you.
Birmingham.
Thanks everyone. Have a good weekend.